TYFU.
We're rolling. Now you have to sing, Beth.
We're rolling.
Wow. That actually tickled me. We're good to go.
So I think we want to do a little bit of business.
Let's do a little bit of business.
Okay.
Why don't you kick it off?
Well, hello, new listeners.
Yes, we have so many new listeners. This week, we want to thank everyone for following the social medias, for downloading the new episode, for revisiting the old episodes.
For sharing all those with your friends as well.
I hope you will like it, and we will not disappoint you.
We'll do our best not to disappoint you. Yeah. Let's rip an envelope, shall we?
Let's just get right into it. Rip an envelope and rip the Band-Aid off, basically.
Yeah. This week's episode is on disasters. Disasters in your business.
Disasters.
Right. And I'm really primed for it.
Now, disasters just in general, or disasters that you can't really control, like out of your own control?
Well, I feel like, what do they call it in the insurance world? Like acts of God?
Oh, yes. That's what I'm thinking. Because there is the disaster of like me personally just making a terrible decision and ruining something.
Setting your business on fire?
Bad
decision, Marilla.
That's a bad decision.
Because that's arson, and I don't think insurance covers that.
Okay, I'm going to need you to quiet down before you ruin all my plans. Okay. But that's what I was thinking. I think this is specifically like disasters that you cannot control. They just come at you, acts of God, flood, famine, fire.
Yeah. Accidents, death. And I think we might want to mention ahead of time that we are going to have a lot of that kind of talk this episode.
Yeah. So if you're not in a space to hear that.
But it's going to be hilarious still. Don't worry. We're still going to make it funny.
I mean,
sort of.
Should we?
I don't think we can help it.
We're going to try.
We're going to joke about it. We're going to joke through it to cover our pain.
Yes, but, because that's a great trauma response that we learned.
Yeah, that's healthy.
Yeah, okay. Great.
And we have a guest joining us this week.
Yes, we do. I'm so excited. Hi, Shawna.
Hi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
We have Shawna, owner
of Wegmans, yeah.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We've done such big things.
And in your spare time, what's your passion project? Like downtown Geneva?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Anorah Restaurant and Bar, downtown Geneva.
Ooh, which our listeners may be familiar with because Beth and I gushed over it a few episodes ago.
Anorah might have been our first 5 stars.
Gave us our 5 stars.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really one of the early ones.
And really, like, Michelin is on the way out. Like,
it really is.
I've heard
a few 5 stars, really.
Yeah.
The gold standard.
Yeah, so you heard it here first.
So tell us a little bit about Anorah for people who haven't had the pleasure of going there yet.
Yeah, so we are a small restaurant downtown Geneva. We like to call ourselves eclectic comfort food.
Yes.
Anyone that has been to our restaurant definitely knows that our menu changes constantly. It is changing almost weekly.
Love that.
We kind of go with the flow as far as what we can get in from our local lovely farms. My partner, my fiance, who is the chef and the other owner, is always super jazzed to play around with different styles of cuisine. So one week it'll be mainly Italian menu. The next week it'll be Mediterranean. The next week it could be Asian influence. Yeah. So
all of it is great.
It is.
We dabble.
Yeah. We dabble.
Had you been in the restaurant business before you opened Anorah?
Yeah. So I've been in the restaurant industry since I was probably, I think, 14. Once, I don't know, when we were...
Is that legal?
I was going to say, the earliest time you had to get working papers and all that jazz.
Like 14, 15. Back in our day, yes.
Yep. I was a salad girl at Uncle Joe's.
Yes.
Uh-huh. And I bumped up to host, bumped up to server. And then, did a lot around more restaurants in the Finger Lakes. Before I was the owner of Anorah, I was actually the general manager at the restaurant that resided there before, which was Red Dove Tavern.
Yes.
And after that, I was the assistant manager at Kindred Fare.
Which we also love.
We also love.
We
Yes.
also love.
Shawna, your reputation precedes you.
Do you love it all the time, constantly? Is the joy still there for you?
Oh my
Or-
God, 100% all the time. No. Yeah, I mean, most of the time, honestly, I think with every business owner, especially small business owners, we know there's ups and downs, and there's times where we love it more and we kind of despise it a little tiny bit.
Yeah.
Right, just a little.
Just a tiny little
Just
bit.
depends on the day.
Yep, depends on the day, depends on the people that walk in and such things. But yeah, for the most part, I mean, we love what we do. We wanted to open a restaurant because of the fact that we had been working in the restaurant industry for a really long time, and we've learned from a lot of people, and we've, a lot of good and some bad, but we wanted to take all those things and put it back into the community and be able to just create a space where we felt we could create dishes that we were proud of and invite people in and make them feel like at home, even in a restaurant.
Yeah.
And that's what we try and do, at least.
Well, I say you're nailing it.
Yeah, I feel like every single thing I've ever eaten at Anorah is something that any chef would be proud of.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Yep.
So sometimes we love it, sometimes we hate it.
Especially we might hate it or might love it even more when it's in
Ooh.
the midst of a disaster.
The midst of a disaster. Yes.
And I'm going to kind of like back into this topic a little bit because when I said that just now, I thought about COVID being a disaster.
Yes.
Now, right?
Right.
Nobody wants to talk about COVID. Eventually, we'll do an episode
Super
on
boring.
COVID. I think. We're all so over it.
Snoozeville.
But I remember the only reason I'm bringing it up is because I remember feeling like when COVID was threatening my business, I wanted it way more to succeed. Like that gave me the gift of reinvesting in my business
I
emotionally.
see what you're doing here.
Right?
Like you
I'm
love
backing
it.
in.
You hate it, but you love it more. I see this.
Right.
Yes.
It was a super stressful time.
Right.
It was probably the most stressful time ever, even though there was plenty other disasters that we can and will talk about
We
tonight.
can and will.
Yeah. But I think the perspective it gave me is I don't want this thing to die. I don't want this store to die. So even though I was
Right.
suffering some burnout ahead of COVID, when it looked like the thing could die, I just needed it to live.
You're like,
I just
hell
really
no.
wanted it to live.
You're like, if anything's going to kill this, it's going to be me.
Exactly
Not
right.
a natural
Not this virus.
disaster. This will die by my hand.
own natural disaster.
When I set it on fire, that's when it's going down.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I like that. I like that perspective.
So I don't know if that always happens, but I think it could happen when a business suffers a major catastrophe that you just get hungrier for it. Or it could be that it completely wipes you out emotionally and financially and you just can't come back from it.
Well, I mean, I'm thinking about maybe sometimes disasters tend to be unpredictable, and sometimes I don't think you have a choice. You have to fight because you don't have a choice. And this brings me to you, Shawna, talking about last year. When we were talking about this topic, I immediately thought of you guys. We had that flooding.
Yeah.
And I feel like you guys got just whacked.
We
Just
got
slammed.
absolutely mollywopped. Yeah.
Mollywopped.
Yeah.
Write that down.
Certainly did.
So why don't you walk us through that day and how that was for you?
Baby. So, okay.
Set the scene. Set the scene.
Set the scene.
So I was lounging at home, maxing, relaxing, and was on the phone with my best friend who was actually working for me at the time. And while I was talking to her, she was on Facebook, and she goes, "Hey, you might want to go check the restaurant." And I'm like, "For what?" And she's like, "I'm seeing a lot of posts on Facebook about flooding going on downtown. So I'm seeing a lot of like pictures floating around and like feet of water. And I'm like, okay. And I live on Linden. I live right there.
You're like, that
So
seems
I'm like,
weird.
Yeah.
You live close by,
I
like
don't
a block.
hear it.
Right.
Yeah. And I'm like, so I, naturally I get up and I'm like, hey, Mike, can you go check on this? And he, goes down there, and not even 5 minutes later, I get a call, and he's like, yeah, we got a problem.
Oh.
And I'm
hate
like,
that
I gotta
call.
go, Serena. So,
I hate that call.
Oh, it's the worst. So I throw shoes on, I run over there, and before I even get there, Ellen and Anthony from Microclimate are already there helping Mike. They're already
God.
like pants pulled up. Their shoes are like soaked in water.
Well, were you able to even cross the street when you went to your restaurant? Because I feel like there was a lot, just to make it clear, I feel like there was a lot more water than just like normal.
Oh, there was. Yeah. I mean, I was able to cross the street, but I was like wading in water.
Right.
Yes.
It was like shin to knee deep.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
just want to pause and point out that Ellie and Anthony own a business right around the corner and
Yeah.
came running to the rescue.
Oh,
So,
yeah. Yeah. Oh, my God. They're the best. So I get there, and Ellie and Anthony are there. I'm like, oh, my God. Like, thank God you guys are here. What's going on? Like, where's Mike? And they're like, he's downstairs. Like, we're trying to get all of the stuff, important stuff, out of the basement.
Oh, no.
So I'm like, okay. I brace myself. I go look at the basement. All I do is look down the stairs, and there is, up past my knees of water.
Oh, boy.
And
Past the 6 inches that you're supposed to keep your stuff off the floor per,
past that.
health inspectors rules. Yeah. 6
Yep.
inches. Just keep it off the floor 6 inches.
just 6 inches.
Yep.
So I immediately go down there. None of us are thinking about the fact that there's electrical down there.
oh my God, you guys. I wasn't.
Yeah. So like, none of us got hurt, thankfully. But it took us about 20 minutes to be like, oh, hey, we shouldn't be down here.
Right.
There's like there's like wires just like floating around down here.
Yeah.
All of our appliances. And we keep a lot of stuff in our basement as a restaurant. There's a lot of my inventory for the bar. There's freezers, fridge walk-ins down there.
Oh my God.
So there was a lot of stuff that didn't make it. But once we got all the important paperwork, because my Dungeness office is down there.
Oh, like a file cabinet with
Yes.
important things that you're supposed to
But
keep
in a cardboard box. Yeah.
Oh, great.
Once we got all that stuff up, I ran over to the fire department because that's right in the back. That's right in the back of where we're located. And I'm like, oh my God, can you guys please help us like pump out all of this water? And they're like, we don't even have any more pumps. They're like just trying to get the water out of their building.
Oh my God.
And they're like, but we'll turn off your gas. And I'm like, cool. At least, thank you. Like at the bare, I love it.
At least
love
make
the
sure we
idea.
don't blow up on top of it all.
That's great. I'll take it. So, a couple of our friends sat with us, helped us put feelers out there for like people that were just volunteering to go pump, that had sump pump, or not sump pumps, but commercial pumps.
Right.
And we're able to pump some of the basements out because it wasn't just happening to our business. It was happening to, residences. And
Oh yeah. We were around the corner in our basement doing the same thing.
Yeah.
Thankfully not like we didn't have multiple feet of water, but yeah, Joe and I were, shoulder deep in the sump pump.
Yep.
So what
cleaning stuff
precursed
out.
to this? Was it just heavy rains?
I don't know, Shawna. I feel like it was a combination of things.
It was like heavy rains put on top of the fact that like the creek overflowed and there was a bunch of debris that was blocking
some drain.
some
and
drain.
then something also burst maybe. Like
Yes, I heard a little bit of that.
it was like the holy trinity of terror.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it just all I remember that night I had similar in the sense of like I was home in my jammies. Mm-hmm. Like it was raining. It was a very cozy, rainy spring night. I'm thinking April showers, May flowers, just having a cozy night up on my hill in my house and in our apartment. And I saw the same thing. I was like seeing like I saw one video that looked like a river on your street on Castle.
There were children kayaking.
Yeah. Children kayaking.
Canoeing.
In the
down this street.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then I thought, our basement sometimes gets a little moist. Perhaps maybe we should go check it out. And I couldn't believe it because where we were, kind of like you said, at your house, you look out the window and it was fine.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I live in a basement apartment. I'm like, if we're not underwater, who could be underwater?
Yeah.
Not us. We go down and there's this river again. I wore these boots that were like short little utility boots up to my knee. Like those gone. Could barely get across the street. And just could not believe the amount of water. And then I remember trying to figure out what we were going to do in our basement. And thankfully, we only had like a couple inches of standing water. We were able to figure out our sump pump in time. But I remember walking by. Were you guys open yet? Had you opened yet?
We were open. We had been open for
barely, though.
A month.
Oof. Which is like when you're like, okay, we've put all this money into this equipment.
Yeah. And into these renovations. We're good to go.
Yeah.
We got a little bit of reserve.
When you're the most vulnerable, though.
Yeah.
Right.
It's that early.
You're like, okay, we did this. We only need a few months to go right, and then we can be on plane.
Yes. Yeah. And then it was like, you need how long? You're going to go.
Biblical flood. Try that.
Not even, yeah. Yeah. So we got it pumped out by like 2 a.m. We slept in that restaurant that night. It was tough. We had to close the next day, which... you guys know, being that early open, you can't close. Like it's, not days that you aren't scheduled to close already.
Right.
You haven't factored in. And that was not factored in. So
Yeah.
that was a tough one.
That was a tough one.
You said you had to close the next day. I'm surprised that it was only one day. How did that happen? Like,
we just made it happen. I mean, we didn't even want to close that day, to be honest. We were just like, we tried our hardest actually to make it okay enough to be open that day. But the fact that we couldn't get a new water heater in that next day, in enough time to be able to open for service, and be able to do all the prep and stuff. We were like, well, you just got to call it. But by the next day, thank God, the same person that came and pumped us out was actually able to install a water heater and a new sump pump and at least get us back on track in that way. And then we had to have a small menu.
Right.
But
I was going to say, it was better
than nothing.
Freezers and things like that. I imagine there was a little bit of inventory loss, like food loss. And like
there was a little bit of food loss, but because Ellie and Anthony came when they did, they had a freezer. And because the freezer was the main thing down there that we were worried about, because that was totally donezo. And, we had to buy a lot of stuff in there that you can't just take out and hope it's not that good the next day. So they were like, we'll put it in our freezer. Yeah. So there was a couple of days where we had to walk down to Microclimate and like get our stuff. But we were all for it. At that time we were just like, kind of bringing stuff over them to be like, well, while we're over here, taste this. Right. So we just made the best of it.
Yeah.
All I could do.
It's all you can do.
Yeah.
It's amazing to me in those situations, like, there's something, like, even in the horror of it, I feel like there's something so fascinating, and for me to think about like the grit that just comes out in those situations, grit and like just like keep stepping forward. Like you just like you open
figure it out.
Figure it out. And it is amazing the stuff that gets figured out in such a short amount of time. It's like when you look back on it, you're like, how did?
Yeah, especially though with a team and with a community.
Yeah.
It really helps.
Yeah.
Definitely.
To just kind of hold each other up and
right.
not feel alone in it.
Mm-hmm. I would say a lot of the people that came in the following days that actually like follow our Instagram and stuff like that, because we, you know, are pretty open about everything that happens to us on our social medias. And, you know, that was one thing that we kind of had, we're like, hey, we're affected just like everyone else. And this is what it is. And everyone that came that following night was, you know, super supportive. And no one was like, this is it. This is the only thing on the menu, you know? Wow, everyone understood. Yeah, it was fine.
Were you able to file an insurance claim for things that you lost? Or did you not bother? Beth, I think you said something about natural disaster. So I see.
Flood.
Oh, right.
Insurance. There's 2 different kinds.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And we didn't have the right kind.
Mm-hmm.
So, so we did not get to file. But the good thing is, the person who owns our building is also my future father-in-law. So, he was very helpful and was able to help us with a couple of the things and just get us back where we were supposed to be.
That's amazing.
That's lucky, because otherwise an expenditure of that kind that early and then a little bit of loss of income on top of it would be really disastrous.
Oh my God. Brutal.
Yeah. Oh, I couldn't imagine. If we didn't have his assistance, I don't know that we would have made it through that the same way.
Yeah.
That we did. We also had like an incredibly supportive staff that was so willing to help us with like just getting things back in order. Yeah. Yeah. Which was really nice.
Yeah. So many of these situations, like a little, or a big angel shows up that kind of like, I don't know, makes or breaks it. There's all the little tiny little bits of help that come from the community, but very often there's someone that feels moved, whether by relation or just circumstance, that comes in and just like helps so much. And good pick on the fiance with the father-in-law, the future father-in-law. Amazing.
Yeah, I mean,
great on you. That's why I mean, you saved the restaurant, really.
I didn't want to say it, but
I mean, I did. No. Oh my God, Beth, have you ever dealt with flooding?
Yes, but it came from above.
Oh yeah,
the worst. No. No.
So there's a twist on my flooding story.
Okay.
In our first location, we were on obviously the ground floor. It was a 3-story building. And in the depths of January, a pipe burst on the 3rd floor, and frozen pipe. And the water came down and spread itself out over the 2nd floor. And the whole of the 2nd floor, like all the water that was on the 2nd floor.
No.
Oh my gosh.
Just a tidal wave?
Yeah.
Oh,
so
boy.
It was only about maybe a third of the store.
Oh.
So
that's it?
What are you even complaining about, Beth?
NBD. But yeah, so what happened was there was a call from the fire department in the middle of the night. And at that time, this was very, very early, right? Early, fragile times.
Doesn't it just...
Early fragile times. So I had a toddler at home.
Oh, perfect.
And my husband decided to go down and see what was going on downtown. Mm-hmm. And, I stayed at home with the baby. And he came back a couple hours later. He's like, it's not good.
It's nothing wrong.
I went down the next day and it was so cold. It was like in the zeros. And the whole store was iced over on the front because it was so wet inside.
Oh, no.
The store, for those of you just joining us, there's a lot of different stuff that happens at Stomping Grounds. It's used in new books, and it's also custom picture framing,
art,
old maps, antique maps. There's a lot of paper. And
Fragile paper.
Right.
Yes.
Paper and water don't really go well together.
Forbidden love.
Yeah. Forbidden Yeah, it was a real tragedy there. But, it's just trash. It's trashed. And so then the next question is, okay, is there an insurance claim? And the answer is obviously yes.
Right.
But for me, having so many like used and rare things, just the cost, just recouping the cost does not represent the true cost. Right?
Yeah.
Because there's years before we open the store of acquiring those used and rare books.
Yeah.
Well, also, if it's a rare book, there's not another one always.
I'm not going to just be able to go out and necessarily pay the same price to get it back that I invested in it in the first place. So that's pretty complicated.
Right.
And then also you can recoup. Now, I haven't looked at my policy in a long time, but people will see a disaster happening to a business and be like, oh, it's no big deal. They got insurance.
Right.
Oh,
right?
yes. I hate that.
But insurance is like, yes, it definitely helps.
It matters.
I don't want to say, you don't need it. I don't want to say that. But I don't think that it is a true representation of what you're really losing.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Such as like you can be closed and recoup the cost of being closed, but only after a certain number of days. I think this could probably vary policy to policy. Right. But you have to be closed for a while before the insurance kicks in. So all that money, potential money is gone.
It's invisible money. Yeah, it doesn't count.
Monopoly money.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
In our case, we felt that the building was no longer safe
to do business
due to a lot of mold issues and things like that resulted after the flooding. And that building, I have to say, had water issues before this. So when the ceiling tiles came down, you could look up and see just a ton of mold.
Oh,
so we needed to move. But the insurance doesn't cover the cost of moving.
Right.
Yep.
The insurance money doesn't recoup the lost security deposit or the new security deposit or, I don't know, just all the hassles that go along with that. The insurance money doesn't cover trying to communicate to your customers that you have moved from one location to another location.
Right, because as soon as you're not in your one location, your customers walk up to the door, try the handle, and they're like, that's closed. I guess I didn't make it.
It doesn't cover like the new signage. It doesn't cover like all the time it takes to like redecorate the new space if you need to do that. Like it's just the tiniest little fraction of what your true costs are. But you talking about Ellie and Anthony at Microclimate reminded me that when it did come time to move, I think I've mentioned on prior episodes, the whole community showed up to help me move, including, I think, Kelly Walker and a lot of other business owners downtown. So that helped emotionally as well as like literally and physically.
Right.
It's a whole nother feeling when you are going through something as a business owner and the other business owners in the community are like, hey, we see you.
Yeah.
We're, we might have a similar concept of a business, but like we want you to survive too.
Right.
And we're here to help. It's a huge relief, and it's just, it's amazing.
It's like you're in competition perhaps, but you want to have a fair fight.
Yeah, exactly.
No, it's very warm and fuzzy. But even if it wasn't, it's like you don't want to see anybody like go down because of something
for that.
So crazy. Yeah.
At the end of the day, we are all neighbors. So
right. Whether we're like business competitors or not, like it doesn't, when those things happen, it transcends that.
It does
a little bit.
Yeah.
But also, if our city is getting to be known for a foodie city, we need a lot of restaurants for that. To be a shopping destination, we need a lot of retail businesses for that. So we do all help each other.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I completely agree. But I think some people don't even think about that. Like that it takes a village among the business owners supporting each other, even if you're a restaurant right next to a restaurant. Like you both do better if you're helping each other.
Right. I mean, if this person comes from, Syracuse, because they saw your business on Instagram and they really wanted to see it, and I'm right next to you, and then they look over and they say, hey, and there's another business right there. Maybe we come back next time and check them out. That does me good.
It does
you
good.
know?
Right.
So, yeah.
So be nice to each other.
Be nice.
And if the basement's flooding, get in there. Dive in. Roll up your pants.
We actually also, Beth, had waterfall from our ceiling.
Oh, no.
Yeah, we did.
It sounds like you guys have very wet operations.
Something like a plague. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, we had, it was a regular business night, and we had only just opened, so we had a 2-top sitting right in the window. And all I heard was this big, because for, those who don't know our restaurant, we have tin tiles on our ceiling. And so all I heard was like this huge crash. I screamed from the absolute top of my lungs because I thought there was like an explosion. And I look over and there is just water pouring onto my bar. And I'm just frozen. I'm like, what? And my bartender is like, I'll grab a bucket. So we're just like, yes.
Yes, and that's why you hired her.
That was Sabrina.
Yeah, as well.
She's the alert to all of my water problems. I slapped a sign on the door that said, not seating anymore.
Yeah.
And that 2-top continued their dinner.
Did they continue their dinner?
They sure did.
And did they
turned
watch
around.
you guys? Or did they watch you deal with it?
Our dining room is not big.
Yeah.
So they heard what we heard.
But did they look away? But what I'm
There's nothing to see here.
Yeah, there's not.
What I'm wondering is if I'm the diner, if Joe and I are sitting there eating our meal and this crash happens, you guys are panicking. What's the etiquette there? Do we pretend that our meal is fine? Do we offer to help? Do we just politely look away?
Yeah. Well, that's what they chose. So
it's a choice.
It's a choice. And we didn't know how to handle it either. So we were like, well, let them finish. We're all just kind of sitting there waiting for them to finish. I'm telling everyone, our staff, hey, yeah, you can go home.
Right.
We're obviously can't.
I got these two.
Yeah, I'll, figure this out.
Man.
Yeah, and so we had to close that night too, which that was also very early on, and that was an AC problem. It was AC was flooding onto our second floor, which flooded into our room.
Yeah.
Luckily, that wasn't that wasn't 1/3 of our space.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
That was
so
we could deal with that.
Water sucks. In a small business situation, you don't want it raining down. You don't want it
coming up.
No.
Nope.
It's crazy. And we are all warriors out here on the front lines of
Out on these streets,
just surviving.
Have you ever had a fire? No. Because I have.
What?
Yes,
What?
I know.
That is winning the disaster bingo so far.
Yeah. Again, with paper. No.
Okay, so your store is full of paper. Mm-hmm. And something catches on fire.
Well, it's more complicated than that.
Okay, great. Lay it on me.
So before I moved to Geneva and opened Stomping Grounds,
Became a local celebrity.
a different store in a different town, as I've mentioned before. It was a more straight ahead traditional used bookstore.
Okay.
No framing.
No
jazzy
frills.
gifts.
No frills.
Yeah, just straight ahead used bookstore. Next door to it was a Chinese restaurant. And upstairs,
Oh, boy.
there was a family living in the apartment upstairs. And they had a space heater. And again, in the dead of winter, I was called
Oh, no.
in the night because the space heater had caught on fire. And of course, it's a downtown, so all the buildings are
In
connected.
a row and connected.
So the building next to us was on fire, and into my building, the smoke was billowing, and the fire department sprayed to prevent the fire from
And you're like, could you just blow on it?
I think it's a technique. I'm not a fire person, obviously, but I think you got to spray down stuff in the neighborhood.
No.
Oh, that's how it's done.
So a call came in, and I, for the life of me, can't remember who called, but it was still dark outside. And we lived down the street from the bookstore, and all I had to do was look out my window and see all the ladders and the smoke and the lights and the people gathered around and the news teams.
Right.
Oh my gosh.
And
What did, in that moment when you saw that, I have a reason for asking this, and it is, what did you feel in that moment when you looked out your window, you see fire, lights, news, smoke, ladders? In that moment, do you remember what you felt? Was it panic?
it was nausea.
Nausea?
And which I think is kind of rooted in panic. Like,
Oh yeah, I
you
feel
don't
that.
know what it is, but it's not good. And it was a long time, really, before I knew what it was, because we couldn't get in and see what the
Oh man,
situation was.
yeah. I only ask because I've had, since opening my store in Rochester, which is an hour away from where I live,
Yes.
not once, but twice, I have been contacted via Instagram to tell me in the middle of the night that my store is on fire.
What?
Yes, twice.
Yeah. That seems like a lot.
As like a joke? Obviously it's not. Like,
No,
You didn't mention that, Marilla.
both really well intentioned, like nothing, like really, again, beautiful community members looking out for me. But like the first one, somebody's like, your store is on fire. All the fire trucks are there. They're evacuating the building. And like, I'm watching what's happening, and I'm across the street, and I'm like reading these messages like the next morning because I was snoozing away and I didn't have my Instagram on. And so I'm like browsing this with my coffee and watching it unfold, and they're like giving me the play-by-play, and I remember feeling so far away and so out of control of it. There was like this strange peace that settled upon me, like maybe that was just like resignation to my fate, but I was like,
it's too late now.
right, right. And that's why I asked that, Beth, is because I was like, I twice now I've had someone say the building is on fire, and I've just had this feeling like, well, I don't know her. I guess it wasn't meant to be. Like, I guess the building is going to go up in flames. What am I going to do about it?
wait, but
You want to know if it was on fire?
What was it?
It was not. It was not. The first one, my store is in a building that is connected to many others, and above there are a lot of apartments. And I think it's one of those situations where if someone sets off the fire alarm,
Oh, gotcha.
or like
Okay.
burns a bag of popcorn,
Yeah.
the fire department will come and like check on it. And the first time was a very sweet customer who had been drinking at the bar across the street and was very concerned about my store. And she gave me a play-by-play all the way up until the time
She passed out.
No, she made it.
no,
She made it all the way to
your
the
lights were
end.
on.
Your lights
Yeah, false alarm. No, she made it all the way to the end. She was like, they're pulling away. Everyone's fine. Everything's safe. And I was like, man, the fact that you took time out of your drunken fun night to pay attention to my
That makes me want to bring
store.
something up, though.
Go for it.
Because I've noticed throughout certain disasters that there are people who like to get up close and personal with your disaster.
Ooh.
Both, as we mentioned earlier, because they care, they want to help.
Yes.
But also some in more like kind of voyeuristic ways.
Yes.
Like, I want to be close to the action, and I want to have the gossip. I want to have the inside knowledge. I want to be the one who told Marilla that her store was on fire.
Store was on fire.
You know,
yes.
and that's a different thing. I've seen that in different disasters where people just can't resist having the inside scoop. Or
Yeah, it's like rubbernecking at the accident. Like you want to know what's happening. You want to be close. You want to be the one with the inside scoop.
Like, oh, Marilla, did you lose everything?
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, was
what
it really
insurance
terrible?
cover?
Yeah. Now, here we are asking each other those questions, but it's because we really care.
Again,
it's because we want to be helpful.
Right. Yes, once again, we are exposed as being
of our double
hypocrites
standards on our own podcast. But there is that. You know what I'm talking about. There's some, some grossness that comes out sometimes. Definitely. I'm not saying if your friend is listening, I'm not necessarily accusing.
Oh, no. This isn't
that. But
no. But that's definitely present. And it almost, I feel like sometimes those people, which again, not that girl.
No, not that girl.
Was an angel. But the people that are like darkly fascinated with your misfortune, even if they're super supportive, I kind of find it difficult. They kind of weigh you down from moving forward. Like they're kind of a drag on like moving past the disaster. Because at some point, and I've had to take like stock of this and think about this very intentionally through our 5 years of various disasters. At some point, something happens to you and it's all you talk about as a business. It's all you talk about because it's all you can talk about. It's all you're thinking about. At some point, you have to move on from that. You have to grow from that, and you can't keep talking about it to heal and make progress in your business, I feel like. And there's always a couple of those people that are darkly fascinated with the horror, and you have to be like, okay, well, it's weird when you're the one who experienced the tragedy and you're telling the customer or the person.
You're helping them through their own experience of your
tragedy. You're like, okay, we're all moving through this. We're all okay. We're gonna get past it.
There's another side though that happens. That's almost the reverse, where if you look like you're really hurting or in a pitiable position or like the business is really suffering, people feel uncomfortable being around you, right? If you are in the center of a tragedy, some people just want to back 10 feet away. Like I remember one time, I remember this one time my stepfather died.
Oh, yeah. That time.
Let's harken back.
This one time I had a death in the family, which is not funny. It was awful, but God, did I have to qualify that?
Listen, let's just dive in. All right, we're already here.
Oh, Lord.
Anyway, that one time my stepdad died, and I was running the other business in the other town, and I remember I had some orders come in, and I had to explain to the customer why the orders were so late. And I said, I'm so sorry. I've had a death in the family, and I've been away for a few days, and that's why the order's been delayed, but I'll ship it out today. Right.
And that person then canceled their order completely. Like, oh, well, I don't want to be, a problem in your time of grief. Right. So just never mind.
Ooh.
So like, I guess they were trying to do me a favor.
Yeah.
But it was almost like another hit. Another, like, just, you're not helping me.
Yeah.
You're not helping me, even though maybe you're trying to, or maybe you just feel uncomfortable that I've said that I've had a death in my family. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I do think that people sometimes, nobody knows how to react to you when you're the person in the tragic situation, and people handle it differently.
This is making me think of another thing, though. Like, something that makes experiencing a disaster unique as a business owner, that the disaster doesn't cause your business to close forever. I feel like it's a unique experience to be experiencing a disaster, but having to analyze how that affects your customers and how what the psychology is of your customers, and also having to manage that.
Yeah, you're kind of constantly giving a pep talk about how we're succeeding. We're succeeding.
Yeah.
Our soft opening, 2 nights of soft opening, it was all family and friends. And our second night of soft opening, my fiance's mom had a brain aneurysm, and was brought to the hospital and was immediately not conscious anymore. And then we had to say goodbye to her shortly after that. Oof. So she was a huge part of us opening that restaurant. For anyone who hasn't heard the story behind the name Anorah, it is my mom and Mike's mom's name put together. We decided that before anything happened. So Angela and Deborah. So our parents meant a lot to us in opening, and Angela and Tom, Mike's parents, were a huge part in us getting the space and helping us just with this venture. So for that to happen, and it was very unexpected. I mean,
immediately, too.
Immediate. That was hard because we, again, had to open and keep going. And although we had Tom telling us this is what she would have wanted, she would have wanted you to keep going. She supported you. She was your cheerleader. This is what she wants. You know, we were doing prep, and then we were going to the hospital, and we were, you know, going back and forth, just spend as much time as we could with her before we had to say goodbye. But after she passed, it was like that. We were kind of zombies. We were just kind of just trying to get through every day of service. And again, we had such a supportive staff that was like, we'll do whatever you need us to do. Mm-hmm. Like, take a day off. You know, we took the days off that we needed to, but we still had to come in. And that's just, you know, that's just what you have to do. And so balancing how to talk to customers, because again, we share a lot on our social media, and we did share that because we did have to close for some time. And so it was, not everyone follows us on social media though. So it's like the people that we get in that are like, this is a medium, this is medium rare, you know, and I gotta go deal with that.
Gosh, yes.
It's like, you have to deal with that in that space that you're in emotionally.
Like, right. And it's like, you have to figure out how to put up those walls and just get through the day and do what you're there to do. And then you go home and you get to be a real person again. And sometimes people don't think about the fact that sometimes when you're in customer service, you're still a real person and you have real things to deal with. And, you know, there was a lot of times where we had to kind of, not a lot of times, I shouldn't say that. There was a few times where we had to deal with that. A few times where it was like, you know, service could have been better, and you know, it's like
they could have been more cheerful.
Sure it could have.
It really could have been in a better mood. It really seemed like they were super down. Weird.
Like, really weird.
Oh my gosh.
That was a tough time for us. But again, we had those people that came in and knew us and followed us and knew the story and were super supportive. And knew what we've been through because they had experienced it in the community. And, you know, because of that, like, would check up on us and, you know, just ask, hey, how are you doing? Can I bring you anything? You know, and that was a big thing that got us through it.
It's those moments that I think give you as a business owner, the ability to compartmentalize enough to deal with the people that don't know or tell the story for the millionth time or like, and what kills me is like in those situations, you're like, professionally, you want everybody in your space to have a good time, have a good experience. But then sometimes you have to explain what's going on. And then it's like, okay, well, this and this is happening because this horrid thing just happened and it is tragic and terrible. But listen, I don't want that to interfere with your meal or this birthday dinner.
Yeah. Exactly.
You guys have a great time.
Yeah. We are going to get out here. We're going to sing happy birthday. And then I'm going to go home and cry over my mother.
Yeah. I got to tell you though, like, I think one of the like baseline rules of running your own business, when somebody says, how's it going? You say, great. Every single time.
Absolutely.
No matter what's going on.
I don't want
you say, great, thanks. Yeah. Because I think a rule should be, you don't make your problem the customer's problem.
Well,
that's like the first rule of customer service.
Yeah.
Right.
But then there's these other moments where you have to kind of break your own rule and do it.
The line gets blurry. Yes. And it's interesting, Beth. I would say I agree. Like, the most efficient way and I think that's great advice to always say great.
Yeah.
To always say great. That is the most efficient way to get through that interaction and do your business. Because if you do choose to say, like, somebody walks in and be like, I've had better days.
Yeah. Why?
I say that sometimes, but I know that I'm investing more time in the interaction than the business should, or like the business justifies. Like, I could get that interaction done quicker. Sometimes it builds a relationship with a customer, but you got to pick and choose when you really want to open up and tell the customer that you're a human being and something human is happening to you, because every time you do that,
only certain customers,
it's risky.
Mean, to Shawna's point earlier, some customers don't care if you're a human being. They don't want to know if you're a human being. Like, it's really going to crush their vibe, and they're going to hold that against you next time they're choosing where to go out.
Exactly. And it's like, it almost feels like, I know when that was happening for us, like, it definitely, it's not something I wanted to talk about when I was at work, and for those people that worked in the community and had a similar experience, then I was more willing to actually talk about it. Not for long. I'm at work, I'm because we have a different connection. I can talk to you outside of work. But with some of the folks that came in and would ask about it, I'd give them a brief, I guess, general reply.
A debriefing.
Yeah, just a general reply. But it was hard to find the line as to where I could be like, okay, do you even want to hear about this anymore? Like, I don't.
Right.
Do you want to hear about this?
Right.
I don't.
I do that too. I tend to just like not get into it.
Yeah. And it's like, I don't want to make anyone uncomfortable. I don't want to make their experience at my restaurant.
Right.
And it's like you said, Marilla, like, I'm there to curate a good experience for our diners. And we do that no matter what we're going through. And sometimes it's a little bit harder. And you'll catch me on days where I'm not smiling as much and I'm not conversing as much.
How dare you?
Yeah, exactly. But I'm still there, and I'll still, chat a little bit, and I'll do my best.
Right.
And that's really all I can do.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, and then for me, like, when we were going through, I don't know, flooding, construction, name change. Let's pick the name change. When we were going through the brand change, and it was just this long process, like, it was this first, we get this cease and desist. Gee, I don't think we're going to have to do this. And then we have to come out and say, we do have to do this. And that's just the beginning of the process. It takes it took like half a year. It really ate our whole year as a business. It was to speak to what you were just saying about, like, not making my experience the customer's experience. There were people that came in that whole year that had no idea that I was going to have to change my name or why, blah, 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 or even cared about my problem. And then there were people that really cared and always asked, and they wanted to know, and they were righteously mad about the whole thing. But then at this one point, it's like, it's part of the reason we decided to change our name in the end is because I wanted to be able to not make that the customer's experience and our experience till the end of time.
Yes. Yeah.
And if we hadn't changed it, it would have been a lawsuit that could have taken years. And then all we're just the shop that has problems and talks about their problems. Cause at some point you have to move on and be able to not have the conversation about losing a family member and not have the conversation about like this almost horrid lawsuit and not have the conversation about your store burning down because you want to be at work. You want to work, you want to do your job, and you want to like have your business move forward.
Yeah.
And it's hard. It's hard. I think that's
I think in the early days of a business, though, you're working more than 40 hours a week. You know, you're at work constantly. And I do think this may be another whole episode. We don't have to get into it tonight. But at some point, you have to grieve. And you have a process to go through as a human being. And it's really hard to do that. Now, work can be a blessing because it takes your mind off things and it gives you something else to focus on besides your loss. But yeah, you are human beings who have like a process to go through.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry that happened because I can't imagine just how overwhelmed you must have been with everything.
Yeah, it was. I think it still is. You know, it's like I said, we were kind of just like zombies, kind of just walking through it pretty numb. And I think that was us for just a really long time. And it's still hard to think that we're on this endeavor that we thought we would be sharing with her, and we're not. But with so much support and so much of, Mike's family also lives in Geneva. I mean, his cousin is Joe, and they're, from Linden, and they're so supportive. And I don't think we could have made it through that without so much support from so many of the people around us.
Remember how I mentioned we had that fire in the first bookstore?
I recall.
You remember that? Yeah.
Yep.
I don't know.
And that was a disaster and blah, 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 blah. Go to like 8 weeks later, we're finally ready to reopen with big fanfare and to-do.
Yes.
And there was
marketing
a cafe next door. So I had kind of rented out the cafe for the day to have a grand reopening there.
This is why she's been in business for 15 years, people.
This was a long time ago. So there was no actual, like social media was not happening for business advertising then. So this is like...
You're just out on the street corners.
I was basically handing out flyers.
Yeah.
Right. So I was hustling to get people to know that the store was reopening and that everything was fine.
Yes.
Everything is fine.
Everything's fine.
So I spent all my money.
Oh, man.
like renting out this cafe and getting a big food spread and having everything ready for the day and advertising it. And then that day, an ice storm hit. And so
audible gas.
There was no power. And like phone lines were down and trees were down. And no heat. Nobody had any heat.
The food. My God. The cafe.
And the cafe was clearly closed. And I just had this ton of food. Nobody, literally nobody to come to the grand reopening of the bookstore.
That's a nightmare.
So all this food went over to a local bar who's, they were lit up with candles that night, right? And eventually they were like, okay, looks like we're going to be without power for a few days. Let's feed the whole neighborhood with stuff that's in our
Beth's
fridges
grand open.
and freezers and Beth's grand reopening food.
Yes.
Because they couldn't store it.
Right.
They didn't have any power.
Right.
So it just became sort of like, well, who's ever here wants to eat.
Yeah.
We're getting rid of everything, free food for everybody.
We're taking care of each other.
It was kind of one of those community moments, but man, that hurt.
I was
like,
thinking if that didn't have that like twist at the end, it was giving me like kid trying to find a seat at the lunchroom and no one's letting him sit with him.
Like
that was
like
just
feeling
like
that
feeling you get watching
sock in the face.
no.
Yeah. Like, oh no, there's nothing to do about that. But that's how it feels sometimes. There's nothing you can do.
It's nothing.
There's nothing
no.
you can do except
yeah, and then it
cling.
gets to almost like comic land.
Yes,
like this
it
is
does
so
get to
absurd.
yes.
And I'm so powerless in this that
Yes.
I guess we're just gonna like take your feet off the steering wheel or the feet off the brakes.
Yeah.
I don't drive with my feet on the steering wheel usually.
Please
sometimes
take your feet off the steering wheel.
Never have your feet on the steering wheel.
Or do whatever you want. Yes, I remember, like, since we're in this comedy moment, I had one of those moments during the year that they were doing downtown construction, and there was like this huge like death ditch in front of my store. There was like one tiny half a strip of sidewalk that was kind of gravel, kind of broken up sidewalk, and then there was just this like 8-foot ditch with orange fencing all the way around. Like no one could get to it. It looked like we were danger. Don't go there. I'm sitting in my store seething because no one can get to me. And I look up and there is a 93-year-old man who I called Pop climbing out of the ditch.
Scaling the walls of the ditch.
Scaling the walls of a ditch, clutching a plastic grocery bag full of jars, climbing, hiking his leg. He scaled the ditch, and then he hikes his leg.
The bag over to
Hikes his leg over the orange fencing. Grabs from the orange fencing, he grabs the handle of my door and pulls it open and like hikes himself. I'm like freaking out because like he could die.
This looks dangerous.
Any second. Pop, what are you doing? So I run to the door. I like pull him up out of the ditch over the fence, like in, and he's like huffing and puffing. And I'm like, what do you Yeah, what could you possibly need? And he hands me this grocery bag. He's clutching, plastic grocery bag, by the way, full of jars. And he's like, I just washed these out. I wanted to donate them to your free jar shelf. That's it. He didn't need anything.
The lengths Pop will go.
Didn't need anything. He didn't buy anything. He just risked his life.
Did you let him go out the back door?
No, he literally insisted on going out the front door. I said, listen, you have to
slam the door.
At that point, no, I was like, please go around. Like you could walk around. It was a longer walk. And in his head, it was just inefficient to take the longer walk. But that moment, I just had to laugh. I was like, this is a comedy. This is not real life. This is an old man scaling a ditch for me. And what am I complaining about?
Amazing.
Like, just the comedy. There's no moral to that story. It's just...
I think there's a moral if we think really hard about it, but...
Yep. So what have we gotten out of this, ladies? That you're stronger than you think. And that sounds stupid, but it's
maybe
true.
that the worst can happen and you can get through it. You know,
That's
absolutely.
Yeah, that's true.
That Pop will stop at nothing.
That Pop
That'll get you those.
There will always be a man that scales a ditch for you. He might be 93, but he's out there.
Yeah, he's out there.
Maybe we've learned that community is really important.
Very
being
important.
a part of a downtown or a wider
Find your
business
people.
community. Find your people. That's a better way to say it.
Find your people.
Yeah.
Communicate with them. I think it's tempting to I think for a new business owner, it would be tempting to hearkening back to our first episode ever.
Did you just have a hearken?
Just hearkened. Not let people know that the back room... Not let people know that the back room is on fire. Like there's a temptation to take that to the nth degree and not share with people, I would encourage, if you're going through something, to include your customers in a way that you're comfortable with, that doesn't, cross your boundaries.
Or feel too exposing.
Or feel too exposing. But like, definitely communication, especially in this day and age, like customers come through if you tell them what's going on. Yeah. For the most part.
Yeah. I mean, just to remember, like, it's so easy to forget when you're a small business owner that you are an actual living, breathing, feeling human. And
yes,
that is, you really have to try every day to remember that, honestly. Especially in the beginning, because you're just running ragged like a little robot, and you're not, and you get to feel things, and you get to be human, and have your support system, because they can pull you back and, help you also be professional, because that's also a line you want to stay on. But the people that you want at your business will understand when you are human.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Find your people to support you. Find your people that are your customers. Find and trust that they've got your back. And also, if you need to take a day off, even if you feel like you absolutely can't, if you need to take a day and have a little mental breakdown, that's okay. You know what? Take a couple hours. Let it happen.
You got a half an hour. Half an hour anyway. Good half an hour.
Legally, you are allowed a half-hour lunch break in an 8-hour day. So, just take that 30 minutes and
work through your grief right then.
Yeah. Get over it, Yeah.
That's all you need.
But yeah.
Okay, well, thank you. Now, seriously, extra thank you, because this is a vulnerable episode.
Yeah, I'm sweating.
And you really were very generous to share some of these most difficult moments with us and the listeners. So
well, I think it's important. I think it's important that people are able to, meet us where we are. And thank you for the opportunity to come and talk about our little hole in the wall.
If nothing else, this is just therapy for us business owners who can't afford the therapy. We're just taking a minute, to maybe process some things. And I would just like to say, I think you're a badass.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Very strong.
And I extend that to Mike as well.
He is a badass. I will let him know. I will pass it along.
I don't know if he listens to our podcast, but you could let him know.
We were listening to it before I got here. Oh, he was jazzing. Yep.
Well, I am just so proud of you guys, and I love everything you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
So thanks for being on our podcast. All right, so I think we should do a 5-star review. I think it's time.
What do you want to review this week?
I would like to review Microclimate in Geneva, New York. Microclimate.
Right around the corner from Stomping Grounds.
And Marilla's Mindful Supplies. I walk by every day when I'm in Geneva. It's a little wine bar. They have an extremely genius menu. Yes. And I have to control myself, because I would go there it would be like microclimate, Anorah for me. I have to be really careful. I just have never had a bad meal there. I've never had a bad glass of wine. What about you, Beth?
Well,
crickets.
Since you're asking,
interesting.
I do. I'm a big fan of Ellie and Anthony, who own Microclimate.
Yes, and
I have been into Microclimate.
Okay,
to chat,
and
I have not actually. Now, they took it over recently. Okay. I've been to Microclimate in my life.
Yes. Okay.
But
so. Enough. That's enough of that. We're gonna take this on the road. Doesn't Ellie's sister work for you, Beth?
It's I can't give a 5-star review just because I'm, nepotism or whatever.
It's true. We can't. We cannot give this 5-star review until we go down and Beth experiences this business. So we're taking this 5-star review on the road.
Okay.
Let's go.
All right. Here we are in the middle of our Microclimate dinner, and I'm feeling angry.
Why so, Beth?
Because I cannot believe that I haven't been here since
Ellie
it
and
reopened.
Anthony.
Yes.
So you don't have a feud with them? That's not the reason.
No, in fact, I kind of like them. And I keep saying,
Even more
I gotta
egregious.
go. I gotta go to microclimate. I gotta go to microclimate. It's really, though, I find that it's criminal. It's criminal that I have not been to microclimate.
The level of yum here is outstanding. And I really appreciate how, like, each little thing on the menu is so intentional and so well put together. Love it.
It's like they're not even bragging. They're just delivering.
Yeah.
Also, I think I'm not probably the only person who had been to microclimate many times. I'm not the only person who had been to microclimate many times pre-pandemic and had a very nice selection of olives and nuts here. I didn't realize that you could. I didn't realize that the kitchen situation had changed so dramatically.
One time, they made a fish soup. Like, it's a great winter spot to eat, because one time, you guys made a fish soup that blew my mind.
Yeah, that was so interesting because it's like, I guess maybe a soup that Anthony's grandma makes. And I smelled it and I was like, this smells like my grandma's house.
Right.
It was like, had this universal
Grandma soup. Yeah, it did. And I remember you and I talked about it that night. It was like, I could have put away a bathtub of that soup. And if you ever make it again, you have to text me and let me know.
You probably won't make it again until
Fall.
like tomatoes.
I'm on the short list for that because I'm bringing my grandmother. Oh,
Be like, this is how you do it, Grandma.
yeah. Try to do it more like this next time. Yeah, so good and so homey. So, you're angry that you haven't been here, that you've slighted Anthony and Ellie thus far.
I'm ashamed of myself, Marilla. Ashamed.
Writhing in sorrow. Because they earn a 5-star review in your book?
I mean, I love it when I can give. What I was afraid of was that we come down hoping to give them a 5-star review, and the best I'd be able to muster was like a 3.5.
A 3.5, yeah. Yeah, that's the danger of doing a live review.
But you were right, and Kelly, to have confidence that if we actually hustled our butts down to microclimate and had the food and had the drink, that I would be able to climb on board the 5-star review wagon.
Yes.
And it's absolutely true.
It's true. It's just what we needed after a boring day at our shops.
No, it wasn't really boring, though. You had quite a story today, which we will save for a future podcast.
That's true.
Yeah, you had a Whopper today.
I got Molly Whopped.
Yes, even more reason to have some food and wine.
Cheers to that. And cheers to microclimate.
Chat about the things, it is the way it is. Thank you for understanding.
We sincerely thank you for understanding. Please visit us at tyfupod.com to learn more about the show, share prompt ideas, or tell us about your own small business experiences. We may include your story in a future episode. Find us on Instagram, Facebook, or YouTube at tyfupod or at tyfupod.com. Our theme music was composed by Marilla Gonzalez. The show is produced by Kelly Walker. Too bad for Kelly Walker.
We need a cat pause.
We got to pause because the cat is now taking the toy into the box.